So I'm going to send you a full practice paper with everything that you need to do, everything that is necessary for you to do, and it'll be similar to like what you will do on the exam. And also what I'm asking that you do this time is that you have to time yourself. So this is our second last class, and next class I won't give you homework because obviously I won't be able to correct it, or maybe I will, I'll have to think about it. But anyways, you have to time yourself and you have to tell me how long it took you, because on the exam you only have 1 hour and 50 minutes. So actually more time than I told you, my bad. But you only have 1 hour and 50 minutes to do the exam and everything like that. Okay, so I'll get more into what the homework is going to be, but just so you know, just so you get like mentally ready for everything. Okay, you will have to do a full exam with something timing you while you're doing it. Okay, awesome. So on that note, today what we're going to do is we're going to start with talking about the practice test that you guys did, and then some like review of the practice test, and then some tips, tricks for the exam. Honestly, I think I kind of told you all of them, but we'll do a quick review of them all too. Okay, so let me just go here. Does anyone have any general questions about the exam that I sent you guys? Like, were you confused about any of the questions that maybe you got wrong? Were you like, did you guys find it really difficult? Did it take you guys a really long time to do?
Yeah,
Anything,
there
you
was
guys?
like one term that it was like Gloria, but like I didn't know what it meant because I'm pretty sure we didn't learn what that meant.
Isn't Gloria the musical like isn't it a piece though? I think.
Yeah, it was in the terms section and it like asked us to define that term, but I didn't know how to.
Define the term Gloria. I didn't go through the terms. Remember, I didn't go through the glossary with you guys.
Yeah, but like I checked the glossary and
Oh
it
yeah,
wasn't
it's
there.
not there. Wait, was it for the like the first page, or was it for the page where you had to give like all the definitions and things like that?
Yeah, you had to give the definitions.
Okay.
I think you can just like not choose it because you're only asked to choose like some of the whole thing.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Exactly. So basically, on this exam in particular, you didn't have to do all of the words. You only had to do a few. Let me pull up your graded test, Emily. Let me check. Okay. Gloria. Okay, yeah. Also, this is that exam may have been like an older exam too. I don't really know. But what you did is that, Emily, you just didn't answer it, and that was fine because you only had to define 10 of the terms, and I think they gave you 15, right? But on the real exam, they're not gonna test you on Gloria, first of all, because we didn't learn it. And second of all, usually like I think you'll be fine because you can also use the internet, things like that. So that's not something you have to worry about that much. Okay, good. But
Okay.
that was a good question. It's good to clarify things like that. Okay, awesome. Any other questions?
I have several questions about the test and then the review and and reflection. So for the ritornello form in the page 142, like which one is it?
Ritornello?
Yeah.
Oh, I put piano concerto in G major by Mozart.
Okay.
Wait, let me confirm that. Because one of them literally had ritornello form as one of the main things about it that was like important. So
Okay, and also
Mhm.
for the primary diatonic harmony, I put symphony number 104. Is that okay?
Yep, I put that one too.
Okay.
That's really good.
So in the test, I just have a question about the first part. So the third one and then the seventh.
So part.
It's the
Okay, the
definition part.
Okay.
No,
Okay,
not definition. The composer and works associated. That
Yep. What were you confused about there?
one. So the third one, and
Mhm.
then the seventh, I believe.
Okay, so you got those ones wrong, right?
Yes, I just
Sorry to
forgot.
put you on the spot, but number 3 was Sturm und Drang. Okay. Number 3 was I already corrected your.
No, that's number 4 though. That's number 4. I mean number 3.
Question number 3.
Yeah.
There was no question number 3 on the exam I sent you.
No, not. I don't mean that. I mean like the question number 1, like the first part, and then
Okay.
the third definition.
Oh
is that.
yeah, it was Manio Daras.
Okay, 1 second. Just gonna check. I don't know. 1 second. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, I'm just looking at the notes, but like, okay, yeah. Okay, never mind. And also for number 7, it's that
Henry Purcell.
one. Okay.
A lot of you guys said Bach for that question, which was a little bit confusing to me, but you just have to, like, Henry Purcell, obviously you may not remember him because you don't like know him as much as like Bach, but look at the clues in the sentence, right? So we know that Henry Purcell wrote an opera. He wrote, which opera did he write? I think he wrote L'Orfeo. Let me check. But given that we know that he didn't write L'Orfeo. He wrote Ditto and A. Given that we know that he's literally an English composer because it says he's an English composer, he wrote an opera and also like highly effective word painting, things like that. You don't really need to know, given that you can infer who it is based on the first line of the question, right? Because Bach, first of all, he did not write a lot of English operas. We didn't study any of his English operas, so that gives us a clue that it's not him. But Henry is an English man. He wrote English operas. And also, if you look at page 75 of the textbook, it says here, highly effective use of word painting. Okay? So it is Henry Purcell. Just make sure you're reading the questions and looking for clues, because oftentimes, like, they won't make it very obvious for you. And you just have to use clues in the sentence, and then you'll be able to narrow who you think they're talking about to the nearest person. Okay, good. So Jesse, did that answer your questions?
Yeah, I saw it.
Okay, perfect. Okay, cool. So does anyone have any more questions, like general questions you want me to go through for the exam I sent to you guys? No more questions? Okay. That's fine. We'll go through the essays together in a few moments. Okay, perfect. Let's see what else. What is next? Okay, yeah. I just wanted to do this with you guys because I assumed that there would be a lot of questions about it. Basically, like what Jesse said, you guys all did like really good. For some reason, the first page, a lot of you guys got 2 of them wrong there and none wrong on the second page. Like a lot of you guys followed that pattern, which led me to believe that maybe there was a misunderstanding there. Okay, so so I'm just going to go through the ones that you most or all of you got wrong. Not all of you, but most of you got wrong, just to make sure you guys understand it. I know this isn't the best format to go through it with, but it's the only way I could think of. Okay. So someone got the first question wrong. This composer of French keyboard suites wrote a treatise on harmony. Okay, it's not Philippe de Vitry. It's right off the bat, it's not. It's Jean-Philippe Rameau. And you can, this one might be a little bit confusing, and there's no real way of like me telling you like, oh, there's like some evidence in the question that it's Rameau over Philippe de Vitry. You just have to make sure that you aren't confusing them and that you know exactly what they're talking about and exactly what the question is asking for, okay? Because I'm pretty sure Philippe de Vitry, he wrote a treatise, but it wasn't for, but he did not compose keyboard suites, whereas Rameau composed the keyboard suite that we studied on the chicken, I think it's called. Wait, no, I could be wrong. No. Yeah, no, he didn't compose that. But you just have to read the question and know what they're talking about, okay? Next thing, a lot of you guys got the third and fourth question wrong, okay? The third question, it's Monio d'Arras. This one is pretty obvious. We spent a lot of time talking about him because you have to remember, he wrote both in sacred and secular, and he was one of the only guys we studied that is part of the Trouvère tradition, okay? So remember that. Next, this late 18th century literary movement influenced the composers of the Viennese school. The answer is, oh, that's this question here. Okay, the answer is Sturm und Drang, okay? Sturm und Drang. And by the way, during the exam, you can have this exam, during your real exam, you can have the practice exams pulled up because sometimes they repeat questions from the paper exam to the online exam, and that way you can be sure that your answers are correct. Okay. Yep, that's basically it. That's all that was really that you guys got really wrong on the first page. On the second page, a lot of you guys, I think you guys all got it right, or like most of you got it right. But this one here, this treatise serves as a practical guide for all aspects of Baroque era performance. I was really happy that I think all of you guys got it right, because we didn't spend a lot of time learning about that at all, right? But it is the essay on the true art of playing keyboard instruments, and like sometimes the RCM will throw in some like really lucrative that like we didn't study at all, something they throw in at like the last minute, or like it's not really important. Sometimes they'll just throw that into the exam, and it's ultimately your job to read the entire textbook and take notes on everything, or just use your resources, use the internet to make sure that you have the right answer. Okay, good. For the word definitions, you guys got all of them right. I mean, like if you didn't, I would be a little bit concerned, considering you have the Quizlet, you have the glossary. But yeah, I think when I send you the practice test for this class, your last practice test, there is one with where there is a define, like write the definition for a certain, write the term that fits into the specific definition. Make sure you're reading the questions and not giving yourself more work, right? Because if they tell you to define 10 of the terms and you're defining all of them, like you're kind of wasting your time, especially because you could be getting through like writing the essays. You could be giving yourself more time to write the essays. You could be giving yourself more time to look over your answers at the end. And you don't want to be wasting time. That's the one thing that like you really don't want to be doing. And especially when you're going to be timing yourselves, make sure you're reading the questions. If they only ask for 10, only do 10. If they only ask for 5, only do 5, because I'm only looking at the first 10 that you put in. And the next couple I really am not looking at. Okay. Okay, there's essay review after this. Is there anything else that... Nope, nothing else. You guys did really well. Like overall, you did really well on this exam. I was really happy with everything, considering that I didn't know how you guys were doing, because all I've been doing is giving you essays recently. So very good job, everyone, on that. Okay, and then last but not least, let's go through essay review. Yeah. Okay. So there were 3 essays. Once again, some of you did all 3 essays, which honestly I was pretty happy about. But the question asked for 2 essays, which means that maybe you just did it for practice. And I tried to give you comments on the ones that you did do for practice. But when you're doing the exam this time, ultimately just do 2 of the just write like 2 of the essays if they ask for 2, write 1 if they ask for 1. Don't start writing like a bunch, because you'll be wasting a lot of time and you only have like an hour, which is really not a lot, an hour and 50 minutes. Yeah, so anyways. Okay, cool. So there were 3 essay topics, okay, that I gave to you guys. These were actually super good. I was really happy with all of your essays. Yeah, I tried to grade a little bit more hard. So like if you didn't get like perfect, then I was probably doing that just because I was being really nitpicky. But you guys, I was honestly super impressed and super happy with your essays. So these were basically knowledge-based essays, okay? Obviously, if you didn't know what the Mannheim School was, there was no way you were going to be able to write an essay about the Mannheim School, right? But on the exam, it's a little bit more theoretical what the essay topics they're going to give to you, meaning it's going to be a little bit more about like contrasting and what's the word? Contrasting and comparing rather than like just listing information. We'll get into that later, okay? So I'm basically going to tell you, I wrote like very little here because I want to speak a little bit more. You guys don't have to take notes for this, but if you want to, you probably should, so that if they ever ask you about the Mannheim School, at least you can talk a little bit about it, okay? So for this essay, I was looking for 2 things. Number 1, a brief explanation of the Mannheim School. Okay, look, when you have a topic that's like describe the contribution of the Mannheim School and how it like contributed to the Sonata cycle, the essay isn't looking for you to spend like 3/4 of or RCM isn't looking for you to spend 3/4 of your essay talking about the Mannheim School and then like your conclusion talking about the Sonata cycle. None of you guys did that like as extreme as I'm saying, but you guys have to be able to prioritize what is most important and what like RCM is looking for when they ask for a question, right? Because yes, it's good to give us some background about the Mannheim School, but you don't need to tell me everything about it, okay? I would rather you tell me way more about the Sonata cycle and more explicit referencing back from the Sonata cycle to the Mannheim School rather than just it feels like a very disconnected essay, things like that, okay? Okay, cool. So first thing I was looking for, what the Mannheim School was. I think you guys all gave me a pretty good explanation of what the Mannheim School was. Some of you it was a little bit too long. I was like reading half of your essay and I still wasn't getting any information about the Sonata cycle. But ultimately, you guys were able to tell me what the Mannheim School was in detail, which I always appreciate. Next thing I was looking for is a brief definition, and I say definition loosely, I mean like a brief just basically telling me what the Sonata cycle is. I think most of you did it, or if you didn't, then I told you, but I think most of you did it, where you have to be able to tell me what the Sonata cycle is, especially if it's a knowledge-based essay like what this is. You need to be able to tell the examiner that I'm not just regurgitating information, I actually know what the Sonata cycle is. So you tell me, oh, it's the exposition, development, recapitulation, and coda, things like that, okay? Make sure you're mentioning that. The last thing that I wanted in this, oh wait, 2 more things that I wanted in this essay that I was looking for, okay? So this is where I'm going to break down how I graded it and what were the 5 things I was looking for to give you the 5 out of 5 marks for the essay, okay? 2 more things I was looking for. Number 1, an example. All of you guys gave me an example, I'm pretty sure, which made me very happy because you guys all gave like really good examples too, which supported your essay very well, things like that. I think you guys all gave me examples, but if
I have a
you,
question.
yeah, what's up?
What do you mean by example?
Examples like oh, the Sonata cycle is featured in the symphony number 104 by Haydn, right?
Oh, I see. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
So just like based on what I told you, based on like the pieces we studied, the composition we studied, I want you to tell me an example of that, okay? So you all did that. So I think you know what it is, but yeah, that's about it for that, okay? So yeah, make sure you're giving me an example. The next thing I wanted you guys to talk about, this is a little bit more like you couldn't really have, I couldn't really have told you really, but the next thing I was looking for was explicit referencing from the Sonata cycle to the Mannheim School. Okay, some of you guys, what you did is you told me, okay, so ABCD is the Mannheim School, and then EFG is the Sonata cycle. But the question is asking you, I didn't write the question properly here, but the question is asking you what the Mannheim School did for the Sonata cycle. Given that that's what they want, if you're not telling them that like explicitly, if you're not saying this is what the Mannheim School did, and they developed I don't know, the orchestral crescendo, which helped in developing the sonata cycle. That's factually wrong. It's just like a really, really bad example, but it's just for you to realize that you need to be more direct in your referencing when you're talking about two different things and how they relate to each other. Okay, good. So that was the fourth thing. The fifth thing overall was just like your formatting, your style, the choice of your language, things like that. Okay, so this isn't English class. I'm not like your English teacher where I'm going to be like, oh, I'm taking points off because you didn't use appropriate language or you didn't use like very sophisticated language. Like, no, I was just looking for you to like have a conclusion, have an introduction, have something that was like properly formatted, have like paragraphs that where the information was actually related to what you were trying to say in the paragraph, and you weren't just like throwing information into a paragraph and just hoping that it relates, right? I think most of you did this like pretty well. If you didn't, I added comments, but overall, I thought it was very good, just generally. Okay, so to resume, the five things I was looking for was number one, what the Mannheim School was, briefly. Number two, what exactly is the sonata cycle? Number three, an example. So based on the genres we learned in class, the pieces we learned in class, like Haydn, whoever we learned in class, you need to basically mention an example. Fourth thing was that I wanted you to mention like the symphony and really explicitly, no, not the symphony, sorry. I wanted you to explicitly relate the sonata cycle back to the Mannheim School in a lot of detail. Make sure that you're not just like saying both of those things and hoping that they relate to each other. You need to be really explicit in your referencing. And then fifth, just general formatting, things like that. Okay, so any questions about this first essay? No? Okay. Yeah, I think gave a lot of you guys perfect scores or like only took like 1 or 2 points off for this, or 1 or 0.5 off, because I was honestly really happy, and I think most of you, if not all, fulfilled all of my expectations. By the way, I write out the expectations while I'm grading for what I want to see in the essay. So you guys are all graded by the same metric, and I'm not just being weird. Okay. So the second essay was on the Notre Dame School and polyphony. This was also a pretty good essay from all of you guys. I enjoyed reading them as much as you can enjoy reading about something that you spent a lot of time studying, right? Okay, so this essay, I was looking for a few things. Number one, pretty similar to the first what I just talked about with the Mannheim School, but the first thing I was looking for was an explanation of what the Notre Dame School was. Okay, don't tell me, oh, it was like don't tell me like everything you know about it. Tell me the key information. And what I mean by the key information was that I was expecting you to mention Notre Dame, knowing that you were going to talk about Leonite and Perrotin right after, or like right then and there when you were mentioning Notre Dame School. Okay, because I frankly, I don't care as much about the Notre Dame School and like where they were located, things like that, as much as the people in that school who were able to influence polyphony. Okay, so once again, prioritize. I don't think any of you guys were very extreme in that at all. I'm just making sure that you know that you don't need to spend too much time on that. Okay, so yeah, make sure you mention what the Notre Dame School is. I think all of you guys mentioned Léonet and Perrotin. which is is not like a great thing, because if you wouldn't have, I would be really concerned and also frankly a little bit scared, because you just had to mention them. It was like, if you didn't, I would have probably not given you any points. Okay. Yeah. So, and then the next thing I wanted you to bring up was the influences of Léonin and Perrotin. Okay. So don't just tell me their names, because they could be two people walking on the street that I've never met before. And I could be like, okay, great. I still don't know who they are and why they influence polyphony, right? But you have to tell me what exactly they did, and how they're related to polyphony and to the Notre Dame school. All of you guys did this. I'm just making sure you understand. Yeah, actually, this was probably one of the best essays you guys collectively wrote as like a class, because I wasn't like really sad when reading them because you were missing a lot of things, and it was ultimately very good. All right. Yeah, next thing I wanted you to do is basically tell me what polyphony is, okay? And this is pretty simple. You only need to spend like 1 or 2 sentences on it, okay? Just tell me polyphony is this, 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 and this, and it's when you have multiple voices, etc., etc. Okay? And finally, the last thing that I wanted you to bring up was a piece. Once again, an example. Okay, all you guys, if not, yeah, I think all of you guys brought up Hec Dies Organum. That's great, but also make sure you're not just like saying the example. For example, you're not just saying, oh, an example of polyphony is Hec Dies Organum, and then you're just like, in conclusion. No, you have to explain what Hec Dies Organum is. Why did you even bring it up? Like, why is it important? Why should I care about it? And like, why is it impacting polyphony? Things like that. You need to make sure you are explicitly explaining the reasons why you put an example in there, or else it's kind of just like, great, you just did that to fill word count. Congrats. Okay, good. So I think all of you guys did that though, but just so you know, those were the things to look for. And then obviously, I expected you guys to have proper formatting, things like that. That's where I graded most of you. Okay, this was actually, all of these essay topics, except for the last one, were pretty easy. Okay, like I really thought that if you knew where to find the information in your notes and in the textbook, you could definitely write like a very good essay that was not very hard for you to write. Okay. All right, perfect. So I'm going to give you more tips about the essay later, but let's move on to the last one. I only think like 2 people wrote this last essay. Obviously, because you only had to do 2. Once again, read the question, okay? If they ask you to write 2 essays, don't write 100, okay? Because I'm also not going to probably be able to read all of them. So this next essay was on Beethoven and 18th century genres. I was like pleasantly surprised by the fact that like a few of you did it, because frankly speaking, if I had to choose between the first 2 and this one, I would never have done this one, because it's just significantly harder and also a little bit more like a little bit less of a concrete base to start your essay on. Okie dokie, cool. So a few things here. Talk about who Beethoven was. Okay. Once again, just define. This is something you should do. Define all the terms in the question, just to make sure that you not only like prove to the examiner that you know what you're talking about, but also that's a really great way to give yourself like a way to continue into another part of the of your essay. Okay, for example, you can say Beethoven was a highly influential composer who did a lot of things, and he also influenced a lot of genres. And then that gives you a way to start talking about, oh hey, genres. Speaking of genres, let's talk about the fact that Beethoven I don't know, did a lot of stuff with like sonata forms. Okay, so different things like that. So the next thing I wanted you to do, those who wrote the essay, I don't think any of you did this, which made me a little bit sad, but what you have to do is you have to establish what the 18th century genres that you're going to talk about, or like what they are broadly, what you are going to say within the essay, what you are going to talk about, and like what exactly were they, right? Because if you're writing an essay here and you're like Beethoven influenced a lot of 18th century genres, but you never tell me which ones you're going to talk about, I'm just like, okay, great, like that's amazing, but I still don't know what you're going to talk about, and I still don't know how he influenced which genres in which different ways, right? And like also this made it so that you just had less your essays just weren't as complete in my opinion, because you didn't tell me what the 18th century genres were. You didn't really tell me, and then you couldn't really further explain like the contributions he made in very, very specific detail. Okay? So just in the future, if you have any questions like this, make sure you're making everything very clear, because it might be very obvious for you. And if it was, then like that's good. But you just have to pretend like the examiner knows close to nothing about these people and about what you're going to talk about. So just make sure you are really making everything clear within your essay. Okay? Good. So that being said, are there any questions about any of the essays that were on the exam? Any questions about the practice quiz in general? Anything like that? You can put them in the chat, or you can tell them. You can unmute and tell me. Okay, if there are no questions, can you confirm that there are no questions? Just say no in the chat so I'm not moving on and leaving people behind. No? Cool. Okay, so that being said, what is... Okay, nope, cool. Okay, awesome. So now what I want to do is I want to tell you in more detail what you should do with your exam time, okay? Because I might have told you that you only have like an hour 30 minutes. Well, I was incorrect. You actually have an hour and 50 minutes. And you might be like, okay, great. But it's not so great when you're like doing the exam and you're like panicking, okay? So a few things to note. Right off the bat, the exam is 1 hour and 50 minutes. So what I would recommend, and I think what I did, if I'm not mistaken, I spent like 20 minutes on the knowledge portion and I finished all the questions in 20 minutes. I understand that maybe you don't want to rush through it, and I didn't rush through it, by the way. I was able to reread my questions in 20 minutes for a bunch of different like for all the knowledge questions, just because I was able to like do it very quickly. But if you're not very confident, or if you're like, oh, I'd rather spend a little bit more time on knowledge given that it is worth a little bit more than my essays, I would say okay, but like spend max 35 minutes on the knowledge portion. If you spend more than that, then you will not be able to finish the essays. Okay?
I have a question.
Okay, yeah, what's up?
Did you have to memorize everything, or did you like use your notes?
I use my notes.
Oh,
Yeah, and I would highly recommend you use your notes to, like, you can memorize certain things. And honestly, yeah, you should memorize important things, but there's no way you're going to memorize 158 pages worth of information. They're like, maybe you can, maybe I'm underestimating you guys, maybe you guys are super good at this, but honestly, use your notes, use the textbook and things like that. Because yeah, you can use it if you really don't know the answer to a question, or you can also use it to just confirm your answers, right? Because if you give yourself enough time to do review, you can look through your textbook, look through your notes, and make sure that what you know is correct. Okay? Good question. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, make sure, I would highly recommend you use your notes, or else like why would you even do the exam online, to be honest? If they're letting you use your notes, then use your notes. Okay, cool. So anyways, 35 minutes on knowledge max. It's not as hard as you think it is. You just have to type out like answers. For example, if they ask you, which composer had was a bold innovator, then you have to type out, okay, Ludwig van Beethoven. Okay? And then make sure your spelling is correct. just to avoid you getting points off because your spelling is off. That sucks. Okay, so yeah, make sure your spelling is correct. Given that you only spend 35 minutes on knowledge, you now have an hour and 15 minutes to write your essays, or you can like take a break in the middle if you want. You now have the time to do that. Okay, so I went on RCM's website and I was like, okay, what is RCM telling us about the essays? Because the essays are going to be slightly different online than what they are in person. Okay, so here they said there's going to be a short essay comparing various aspects of composer's contribution and musical style, worth 10%. Okay, if you don't know what that means they're going to tell you compare Mozart and Beethoven and what they did. Okay, that was when I did my essay. When I did my exam, my short essay was comparing and contrasting Beethoven and Mozart's musical contributions. So I went online, I searched up Beethoven and Mozart similarities and differences, and then I wrote my essay and I got all the points for it. Okay, so that's how you know. That's just so you know. That's what the first essay is going to be about. I'm going to try to give you guys an essay about that this week with your practice exam, just because I feel like that's fair. I want you guys to succeed. I want you guys to do well. So I might change the essay questions from what they are in the paper version and make new ones based on what I think they'll give you on the exam. Okay? Awesome. So that's the short essay comparing various aspects of composer's contribution. And then there's going to be a long essay. Okay, it's really 300 word difference if you're keen on that. But basically, the long essay is comparing the musical style of two historical periods or summarizing the characteristic of one or more musical genres or categories. If you don't know what this means, it basically means they will ask you to compare the musical styles, which is like they'll ask you, compare the monophonic style or texture in the Middle Ages to the polyphonic texture in the classical era, or no, not classical, in the Renaissance era, things like that. Or they'll ask you to, they'll just ask you like, summarize the musical genres or categories. Okay, they'll just basically tell you to summarize things like, how did the opera evolve over the eras or things like that. Okay, my essay, I feel like for the long answer not exam essay, what they often do is they quiz you a lot about the Renaissance era and the Middle Ages. My essay was about the development of sacred and secular the development of sacred music throughout the Middle Ages. Okay, obviously that's a pretty easy topic given that there's a lot of info about it in the exam. I just had to talk about each individual genre and how sacred music evolved in the Roman Catholic Church. But I know another person who had to do their exam on who had to do their essay on the evolution of sacred music and secular music throughout the Middle Ages and the Renaissance era. So RCM really does like put one really easy topic and then one super hard topic when they're doing their list of essays. So just watch out for that. And the essays change a lot. So if you're doing the exam with somebody, I don't know why you would do that, but just if you are, then just know that your essay topics will be different. And yeah, that's basically it. Okay, and then the last thing they tell us is that both exam questions will require students to synthesize information. Okay, if you don't know what this means that you cannot just go in the textbook and like write word for word what they're telling you in the textbook. You have to be able to condense it and make sure that you actually know it and you're not just like regurgitating information. Okay, perfect. So that's all I have to say about exam time distribution. Next thing I want to talk about, I don't have a slide for this, but I will talk about it, are my tips for the essay. Okay, first things first. I might have emailed you some I might have emailed you guys, some of you guys with some tips, and extra exam practice. By the way, if you want extra exam practice, or extra essay practice, just email me. I will send them to you. I might even correct them if I have time. Okay, make sure you're doing that, taking initiative. Okay, perfect. So for the essays, first things first, when you only have an hour and 15 minutes to do 2 essays, tell yourself, okay, I want to spend this amount of X amount of time on the first essay, and then X amount of time on the second one. Always make sure you're spending a little bit more time on the longer essay, given that it's worth more, it's longer, yada, yada, yada. Okay, good. So make sure you're being aware of your time split. Make sure you know yourself. Like if you know that you want to spend 5 minutes just gathering your thoughts, taking a sip of water, stretching, organizing your notes, organizing your thoughts before you write the exam, like do that. If I did the non-online test, I probably wouldn't pass. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And I don't know why some people just don't want to take the online test, and they're always like, no, I want to take the written one that's like 3 hours and I have zero access to my notes. And I'm like, okay, that's great. Good for you. Okay. But yeah, just make sure you're taking advantage of your resources, which might sound bad. And some people might be like, oh, that's cheating, but it's not. It's being resourceful. Okay, cool. Anyways, so next thing for your essay is make sure you know yourself and your writing style. Make sure you know that, okay, I want to, if like I said, if I want to spend 5 minutes just like stretching and organizing my notes and making a document with all the notes that I need for this essay, do that. Okay. If you're like, nope, I'm going to spend 1 minute doing that and I'm going to just write everything right on the spot, no break, just go, then do that. I wouldn't recommend doing that, but you can if you are keen on that. Okay, cool. So I would recommend just as a baseline, spend like 2 or 3 minutes organizing your notes, taking a break, not making sure you're okay. Yeah, and as always, if you're doing I don't know when you guys are going to do your exam. Actually, if you guys know when you're going to do your exam, put it in the chat right now, just so I can like gauge whether or not I can help you during your exam. But if as always, you can contact me. I can try to help you. That's not cheating. Again, I'm just going to give you general information. Okay. Next thing, like I said, you have to be able to define every single word in your essay question. I don't mean like say like, okay, so I'm going to write about the Middle Ages, and I need to talk about secular music. Don't write like the definition of secular music is. No, please don't. Write like secular music is music about God and Jesus, which appealed to people in the Middle Ages because the Roman Catholic Church was highly influential. Okay, mask your definition in a bunch of fancy wording. No, actually, I didn't say that. Forget I said that. Mask your definitions of certain words and make it sound like you're just throwing that out there, but it sounds really smart. It sounds really like you're doing it on purpose and you're not just like trying to make sure that you have definitions for everything. Okay, good. So define all relevant terms within your essay in a way that isn't too obvious, but that is still pretty obvious. Okay, next tip for the essay is just to be able to, again, reference your notes, be able to like always make sure you're answering the question, because a lot of times what can happen is that you're like busy writing. Okay, you're writing, and then you're just going down a rabbit hole of like talking about, like, if the question's asking you about like, oh, how did mass evolve throughout the ages, you can just spend like an hour talking about the Roman Catholic Church because you're just going down a rabbit hole of Roman Catholic Churchness, but you're not answering the question and you're not going to pass if you do that. Okay, so once in a while, like, stop typing, read the question, read what you just wrote, and think to yourself, is it related to the question, or where am I going with it? How do I relate it back to the question to make sure that what I'm writing is like purposeful, and I'm not just like, oh, I need to fill in my word limit, so I'm going to write everything I know about Guillaume de Machaut, even though I'm supposed to talk about Beethoven. Okay, cool. Anything else, other tips that I have for you? Not really. Just like, don't spend the entire time typing. I know it's like, oh, I only have an hour and 15 minutes to write like really big essays, but like just take some time to breathe and to like read the question and not be like really stressed through your exam, because you will not be able to write if you're stressed. You will not be able to write coherent words if you're stressed, and it just won't end well. Okay? So, those are my general tips for the essay. It's not as bad as you think it'll be, especially if you're concentrated, especially if like you know what you're talking about. It's really not that bad. I finished both of my essays with like 10 minutes to spare, and I was just like, okay, I guess I'm just going to reread what I wrote, and then I didn't want to anymore because I didn't like what I wrote. But anyways, just make sure you are managing your time, not being too stressed, things like that. The last thing I said, I think I told one person this, but make sure you have like something like Grammarly downloaded on your computer. This isn't to like cheat or anything like that. It's just because the software RCM uses prevents you from copy pasting information, and it doesn't like correct your grammar errors. So that means if you're spelling a guy's name wrong, or if you're like I don't know, if you keep spelling a word wrong, you will just never know. Okay? You just won't know because they just won't tell you, right? I know this because I spent like half my essay writing a word wrong, and then I realized I wrote it wrong, but it wasn't underlined in red, anything like that. So make sure you have Grammarly, because what Grammarly does is they either auto correct or they do it themselves, where they outline the word that's wrong in red, so that you can easily just like know which words you're spelling wrong, things like that. Okay? Cool. But last thing, I said this in passing, but you won't be able to write your essay on a Google Doc and copy paste it into the software. You're writing that directly onto the software, and like you just have to pray that it's structured correctly and things like that, which is why it's so important to lay out a structure beforehand. Okay, cool. So that being said, those are all my tips for the essay. Okay. I may or may not write them out. Wait, let me give myself a reminder. Write out essay tips. I don't know if they're even going to help you, but they helped me. So yeah. Okay. In the chat, like I said, I want you guys to put when your exam is going to be. So are you going to do it in like 2 months from now? Are you going to do it like next week, right after our last class? Someone tell me in the chat, please. Wait, do we get to decide? Around 1 week. Okay, Coco's question. Wait, do we get to decide? Yes. So you basically you purchase the exam, and then you basically right after you purchase the exam, you can do it. So if you purchase the exam on like a Tuesday night at 12 p.m. and you're like, I want to do my exam right now, then sure, you can do it. If you purchase your exam like if you purchase the exam right now, you have like a year to complete it before it becomes a void, before like it disappears. So I would recommend about 2 days before your exam date, purchase the exam, because sometimes it takes them 24 hours to process it. For me, it took like 5 minutes for them to process it, so they're really stretching out the time limit. But yeah, around 2 days before the exam, purchase it, make sure everything works, make sure you're setting up your Moodle account. Moodle is the software they use. Make sure you're doing the practice test. They give you a small practice test just to make sure you're familiar with the software, different things like that. Okay. So, a week after the last class, last class. Okay. So that means that a week after the last class, do you guys mean the Saturday after January 9th? So Saturday the 16th? Is that when most of you guys are going to do it? Okay. I don't really know. No one's really answering. That's fine. But in that case, I will try to make myself available that day if you want me to ask me any questions, or if you want to send me a screenshot of your essay for quick feedback if you have enough time, but you probably won't. I will make myself available then. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, we have a second slideshow to go through. This slideshow will be basically a quick review of everything. Wait, what is this? And also we're going to do something very interesting in today's class too. Okay, let me share my screen again. Okay, so really quickly, what we're going to do is we have a few minutes left, but I want to give you guys around 15 minutes for that last activity, and then I want to talk about it. So that being said, we're going to do review of basically everything that's important. This slideshow has almost no words on it because I want to talk more than I want to type. That's a personal preference, but on your own time, if you want to fill out a slideshow like this, then go ahead. I cannot stop you from doing that. Okay, let's talk about the Middle Ages. I actually dislike what I put on the slideshow, so I'm going to just talk. So, the Middle Ages. It starts with I'm basically going to tell you what's super important. That's about it. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but what's super important about the Middle Ages are a few things. Let me do 5 things because that feels like a good number. Okay, 5 things. Number 1, the Roman Catholic Church. You will need to know what the Roman Catholic Church is, what it did. Pope Gregory. Okay, Pope Gregory is related to the Roman Catholic Church. Why the Roman Catholic Church preferred sacred music, and why it is that sacred music was so kind of obvious and kind of popular when the Roman Catholic Church was at its peak of power. Okay, so everything about the Roman Catholic Church. Next, sacred versus secular music. Okay, to remind you, sacred is like related to the Bible, things like that, and then secular is related to things that are not the Bible, so like love, things like that. Okay, love for other people that aren't God and Jesus, just to clarify. Okay, so you need to be able to explain to me not only what those 2 things are, with obviously an example, like different things like that, but you also need to explain to me why it is that secular music became more popular and how it is that sacred music was ultimately kind of the popularity of sacred music was dwindling over the years. Okay, you need to try to explain that to me as like an examiner. Okay, those are the first 2 things. The third thing is okay, the third thing is the contributions of anonymous composers. Yeah, I already asked you guys to write an essay about that, did I not? Yeah, I think I did. But anyways, you need to be able to tell me why it is that anonymous composers are important, why it is that like how did they work during the Middle Ages, what did they do for music, for sacred and secular music and just music in general in the Middle Ages, different things like that. Okay, the fourth thing that you need to know are the genres. Hello? Okay, the genres. So you need to tell me, okay, wait, you need to know not only the genres, but you need to know which genres are related directly to Heck Diaz. Okay, because there are 3 of them. Pretty obvious actually which ones are, but anyways, you need to tell me like what the 6 genres are, which ones are secular, which ones are sacred, and which ones Heck Diaz is related to. I'll give you a hint. It's the first 3. Okay, wait, I'll just give you the answer. Yeah, so it's the first 3. Okay, make sure you know that. Make sure you know the genres in very good detail, in like a lot of detail, and also make sure you know about Heck Diaz. Okay. Good. So, and then along with that, obviously make sure you can identify the songs, things like that. Um, yeah, that's about it. Am I missing anything? Is there anything you guys want to add? Put it in the chat, put it in the, you can say it verbally. Is there anything I'm missing that you think is super important about the Middle Ages?
What about the composers? Is that important?
Yes, obviously that's important. That's kind of the composers and like the pieces. That's important for like everything. That's something that obviously you should know regardless of the which era we're talking about. So yes, you have to know about them, but I'm talking about specific to the Middle Ages that kind of you don't see in the other eras, right? So
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, obviously if you don't know the composers, I would be concerned. So, like Emily said, make sure you also know the composers. Okay. Cool. Anything else? I don't think so. Nope. Okay. So, I'm not going to go through, let's see. Boop. Okay. The next era, this one is kind of the era that like I don't know. It's a pretty short era. A lot of people tend to forget about it, which is bad because it's important. Okay. The Renaissance era. So, this era, there's a few things to remember. By the way, if you want to look at the textbook, we're now on page 38. Whoa, wait. Before I do that, I just reminded myself of something I want to do. What I also want to do is for each era, I want to look at the review and reflection for that era. Okay. So, let's start with the Middle Ages. Page 36 of the textbook if you are following along. So there's a few things. There are 3 different textures to think about, okay? Monophonic, polyphonic, and heterophonic. Actually, during the exam, if you have this page open and like they're asking you for the development of polyphony throughout the Middle Ages or something like that, you easily, right here, you have an example of polyphonic texture piece, which will be very helpful for you. Sorry. Okay, good. So now you have the use of different melodies. So if you remember, there were a lot of use of modes, okay? Or what we think were modes, but we can never confirm because it was too long ago, okay? So different things like that. And then if you want syllabic text setting or melismatic text setting, you have that here. But honestly, they never really quiz you on that in the exam for it to be super duper important. Let's see, we have rhythm, things like that. And this is what's important. The compositional devices and forms. Oh my gosh, I just remembered that I missed the most important thing. The Cantus Firmness. See, this is why we need to go through this. Remember what the Cantus Firmness is. It's usually in the tenor voice. And basically it's borrowed material from the original chant or text or whatever. Okay. So make sure you know all that. Let's see. Strophic form, Hocket, isorhythm, different things like that. You can probably search that up on your own. Yeah, things like that. And then performance practice, that's not super important. That's super intuitive. You guys should know that. Okay, and then at the end of page 36, they also have a little thing here where they give you 4 essays that you can do. Yeah, you can do them. I doubt anyone will, but if you want to do them, you can. They're not actually the first one. Okay, listen to my words if you want to do some of these essays. The first one can be super important. And that's about it. Okay, great. So if you want to write an essay about the Middle Ages specifically, go to the review and reflection and do the first and the second essays and you can send them to me. But I doubt anyone will. Or just like read them and know them in your brain for future reference. Okay, so perfect. So now let's go to the Renaissance era. So the Renaissance era is when we're starting to kind of get a little bit further away from, the sacred music, from the Roman Catholic Church being such a big influence, we're starting to have rebirths, okay, of like ideologies and things like that. Okay, cool. So if you remember the Franco-Flemish school, that was super important. Remember that. And then you have different pieces. You have here for the Renaissance era, they always in the exam, they will always pair the Renaissance era with the Middle Ages. Given that things like the motet, like the mass, are all also related to the Middle Ages, it's likely that you will never write an essay that is standalone about the Renaissance era, but rather about the Middle Ages and the Renaissance era. But that's not to say that you might not have an exam, have a question just about the Renaissance era. If it comes up, then be ready to write it. If it doesn't come up, or if you have to write it about the Middle Ages too, be ready to write it. Okay.
I
So
have a question.
yeah, what's up?
Is there like an era that's like it comes up more than others? Because when I was in piano class, Jackie said that like one of the eras will like come up more than the others.
Yeah. So there are two eras that I think will come up more than the others. First is the Middle Ages, and second is the Classical era. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's not to say like I don't like when like it's obviously it's a good question, but when people ask me that, I always get a little bit scared because I never want you to like then just focus your attention on the Middle Ages and the Classical era, because you could have like an exam where RCM decides, oh, we're going to quiz this person on the Baroque era, even though it's not as common, but like they might just as well do that. And if you're only focusing your attention on the Middle Ages and Classical era, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage there. So I will say, as a little side note, if you want to do like more essay practice about the Middle Ages and Classical era, you can do that. Yes, I'll say that in a whisper tone. But that being said, you should still be mindful that there's the Renaissance era and the Baroque era. Okay, so good question, but don't like bet like your successes on just doing or just really researching and knowing two of the eras, because ultimately I don't think that will end very well for you. Okay, that's not to say that you will do that or it won't end well for you, but I just don't want everyone concentrating all their attention on two eras when they do quiz you on both, on all four during the exam. Okay, does that answer your question, Emily?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so a lot of things in the Renaissance era that you can go through on your own. Yeah, and definitely listen to the pieces too. I feel like for the listening portion, yeah, I feel like when you're listening to the song and you have to identify it, they always have one from each era, but sometimes they skip the Renaissance era. I don't know why, but yeah. Anyways, that is everything about the Renaissance era that I want to talk about. Let's get into the review and reflection, page 62. So, this is where, the Renaissance era, if you were paying attention, I think we went through this in the second class. It's where there were um, a little bit more experimentation. The people were like, hey, why don't I make a piece where like it isn't just very small, it's not a very narrow range, but can have a bigger range too. So this is where there was like a lot more interesting things to be said, to be done for the Renaissance era. Okay, so melody is pretty easy to remember. The rhythm, that's not super duper important. Harmony and texture, what is important is the points of imitation and the chromaticism. Okay, so for points of imitation, I have Ave Maria Virgo Serena, and for chromaticism, I have Moro Lasso Al Mio Duolo. Okay, so just make sure you know that, things like that. Wait, before I move on, I'm interested in knowing, does anyone want me to send like a PDF version of all the review and reflections, the four review and reflections for each of the eras, just so you guys like can compare your answers, or is that something that you guys want, or are you like, no, that's not very helpful for us? Okay, let me check the chat. It's fine if you don't think it's useful. Like I'm not gonna like take offense. It's just I want to help you guys succeed, and I don't know if I'm just gonna be seeing you guys resources for nothing. Okay, Emily says yes. Does everyone want it? If one more person says yes, then I'll send it. Sure, great, I'll send it with the homework when I post it after class, okay? So that can be important. I did all of these review and reflections by hand. So that's to say some of my answers might be wrong, or some of them you might have better answers because there can be multiple answers for one question. And for a lot of the words, I put 2 pieces for 1 word. Things like that. Make sure you're just using this as a comparison, and ultimately you can still have an answer that is correct, but it's just different than mine. Okay, cool. The next thing that's super important here is the compositional devices and forms, okay? We're not going to spend too much time talking about it, but just know that you should look at this on your own time. Okay, wait, let me serve. Okay, and then here for the essays at the bottom of page 62, the ones that I think are important are number 1 and number 3. Okay, yeah, that's about it. Okay, cool. Moving on to the Baroque era. The era that everyone knows, but no one actually knows. Everyone knows for Bach, but like no one actually knows for anything else. Okay, cool. So, here the one important thing right off the bat is the term basso continuo. Okay, I don't know if I mentioned this enough. I think I did, and I definitely mentioned it, period, but just remember what basso continuo is and things like that. So also what you should know is which genres were being developed or started to crystallize in the Baroque era. Okay, so things like the opera, wait, let me check. Things like the opera, the concerto, suites, things like that, those started to crystallize in the Baroque era and not the classical era. Okay, so something that a lot of people do, which kind of ticks me off, is that they think the opera was developed in the classical era. That's false. Just check the textbook if you're not sure. You can see Baroque era. There is operas under the Baroque era. Okay, there's actually 3 operas under the Baroque era that we studied. So just to further emphasize my point. Okay, so a lot of things here that you can look at on your own, a bunch of different operas. We have the cantata, okay, remember, by Bach. That has lyrics to it. Remember, it's not just a solo for instruments. Then there's the Brandenburg Concerto, which was named after Mr. Brandenburg, who is a count, I believe. Okay, and then next there's the suite by Jean-Philippe Rameau, and it is the chicken. Okay, the chicken suite, and it sounds really weird. And obviously there's 2 suites, the chicken suite and then Water Music by Handel. Okay, perfect. So that being said, nothing else here that I think is super important. Okay. Yeah, there's something I want to get to, so we're making good time actually. Here for page 100, the review and reflection. All of these are super important. I don't think one is more important than the other, so just make sure you have all of them filled out. Make sure that if you ever have any questions, contact me, or you can even, I don't know if you actually can, you can contact your fellow classmates. Actually, I don't even know if you can. Wait, how would you do that? Oh, I guess through WeChat if you really want to, but yeah, make sure you have all of them filled out because they can seriously help you here. Okay? Okay, perfect. And then the last era, the longest one, the one that is like really long and it takes up like half the textbook, is the classical era. Okay? So here, remember different things, okay? Remember basically the genres that were developed in this era, so things like symphony, the sonata form, that's super important, and like Beethoven and Mozart, things like that. Okay, good. So I just want to reiterate something. Like we have 2 hours to talk about 158 pages basically. We have 6 classes. Well, at the end of this, we would have had 6 classes, 2 hours each, to talk about 158 pages. Yeah, I missed a few things or I purposely didn't tell you guys about a few things due to the fact that they are significantly less important than like other things. For example, I always told you guys about the background and origins of the genres we were going to listen to, but I didn't always tell you guys like every single word and detail about the individual events in publication. I actually told you guys most of it for the important ones, but you have to on your own time. I cannot make you guys study. You have to do it on your own. You have to look through the textbook. You have to read through the notes that I post. I have to make a assignment with all of them. Okay? You have to read through the notes that I post. You have to read through it and understand like which parts that I didn't go through because they're less important, knowing that you might get quizzed on them on the exam. Okay? Because I can't tell you everything. If I did, like I would probably not even be through the like Baroque era because it just would take way too long. Okay? You have to do it on your own. You have to make sure you're doing self like review and self-studying of the concepts that we did not learn in class. Okay? Because it's unreasonable for me to just go through every small detail and then you guys obviously don't get to learn everything as like all the important things. Okay, so just remember that, have that at the back of your mind when you're doing things like the exam, when you're doing practice exams. If there is something you don't know, then you should on your own time look for it on the internet, look for it in your notes, look for it in the textbook, things like that. Okay, perfect. So that was my little spiel. Let's continue with the classical era. Okay, so there's a lot of different things here. We have the symphony, we have concertos, we have operas, sonatas, and chamber music. You should know all of these. You should definitely know all of these. I think one thing that they often quiz people about is The Marriage of Figaro by Mozart, which is the opera we studied in the classical era. The one about the very confusing plot where there's a bunch of people who are like seducing others. Okay, so make sure you know things about that. That is super important. That is something that they will definitely be quizzed. You will probably be quizzed on. Okay, nothing's definite. Okay, and then obviously know who Beethoven is, know who Mozart is, because if you don't, then if you have a question about them, you will probably not be able to write very well. Okay, awesome. So review and reflection. So here, page 142 is the review and reflection for the classical era. Okay, there is a lot of different things here. A lot of them are repeated. So for example, sonata form, I got like 3 pieces for the sonata form. Okay, I wrote 3 pieces down under that just so that if they ever ask me, at least I know which 3 pieces are related to the sonata form, and I'm not like looking through my notes because they're not giving me the example that I put down. Okay, so there's modified sonata form. That's pretty self-explanatory. If you look through your notes, you can probably find it. Things like that. Sturm und Drang. Oh, that was on the practice exam. Okay, make sure you know that. And then ritornello form, things like that. So for the essays, for the review and reflection, I would say, to be honest, I would say the first one. I don't know why the first one's always one of the best. The first one and the fourth one, I think, would be most beneficial for you in case you ever want to think about it. What you can do is that, like, I'm telling you guys which essays you can write. You can like circle them and then just read them and write like dot jots of what you would theoretically write if you were to do the exam and that was your prompt. Okay. Yay. Okay, we're making awesome time. So I want to do something a little bit interesting. Let me stop sharing. And by the way, I'll get to the homework in a few minutes. We're gonna do a practice exam right now. Okay? We're only gonna do, okay, actually I lied. We're gonna do one question of the practice exam right now. It's a 20 question. Okay, it's 20, like you have to fill out 20 things for question 1, and you guys are all going to do it right now, and I'm going to time all of you. I'm probably going to give you like 20 minutes, which is 1 minute per question. Afterwards, what you're going to do is I'm going to make breakout rooms, and you're going to meet with me, and you're going to tell me your answers for each question, and then I'll tell you what you got, like right then and there. I'll tell you which ones you got wrong, which ones you got right. Okay, so how am I going to do this? So what I'm going to do is this is probably going to be a little bit weird. I'm sorry, it's the thing is a little bit fuzzy, like my scanning, because I can't scan apparently, but I'm going to share my screen with you. So this is the thing. This is what you guys are going to do right now, okay? So get out a piece of paper. You can do this on a Google Doc if you want, but what you're going to do is read the question, fill out all of these, okay? And then I'm going to time you guys, and in 20 minutes, you are going to tell me what your answers are, okay? So can everyone say yes in the chat if they understand, if they're good to go, if they have a piece of paper and they're ready? Okay, Coco says yes, great. Kathleen says yes, great. I'm going to wait until everyone says yes. Okay, Jessie says yes, awesome. Emily says yes, perfect. Who are we missing? We're missing Belle. Belle, are you good to go for this? Okay, I'll just take that as a yes because I don't want to waste more time. Okay, so everyone, you have 20 minutes starting now. Okay, I'm going to mute and read the question, and 20 minutes starts now. Okay, so you have 10 minutes left, okay? 10 minutes. If there are any questions, put them in the chat. Okay, you guys have 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Okay, time's up. So I already graded Coco. Next person is Kathleen. So Kathleen, I'm going to invite you to a breakout room. You're going to tell me your answers, okay? So okay, Kathleen, you can come to the breakout room.